Okay, welcome back to another episode of The Hard Sell. I'm your host, Joel Stevenson. This week we have another great guest. Chris Savage is the co-founder and CEO of Wistia, which he founded way back in 2006 with his co-founder, Brendan Schwartz, after they finished up at Brown University. So you've been doing video for quite some time. And Chris is also the host of a podcast, Talking Too Loud, and I have personally witnessed the talking too loud myself, and I can say that that is a real thing. But definitely check out the podcast. And Chris, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Joel, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be on a podcast with you and be recording our conversations versus just having them in real life.
Yeah, well, I've been told that I'm not as funny on the podcast as I am in real life, so you'll have to deal with that. The audience will just have to.
We'll see what we can do. We'll see if I'll try to pull it out of you.
We'll try. I'm feeling optimistic today. But maybe, Chris, before we get into it, just for folks that aren't as familiar with Wistia, maybe just give us kind of the quick thumbnail of what Wistia does and kind of what you're about.
Yeah, Wistia, we're a video marketing platform, basically that lets you create, edit, share, host videos, track other performance, live stream video. Like, we're trying to be a very, very easy to use, all-in-one video platform for marketers. And we've been at the game for a while. So as you mentioned, started in 2006 and it's the last few years have been this like massive expansion beyond just being hosting and analytics to really like helping with the creation, with the editing, with the live streaming of video. And so I'm really thinking a lot about that right now and spending a lot of time making stuff myself, working on the podcast, as you mentioned, playing with all these products. And it's exciting because like the technology's changed so much since we started the company that like, when we started, I would talk to companies and say like, hey, you want to use video? They're like, that sounds great. And they'd be like, but we don't have 20 grand to make this video for my blog. I would never do that. And now obviously we live in a world where anyone can record anything on their phone for free. And so it's about the interface, the confidence, where you use it, all that kind of stuff. So it's been really cool to like be in this space for this long and to watch this change happen.
Yeah, I remember my first job out of college. I worked at a telecommunications company, and one of the things that we sold were these video conferencing systems, and they were like, 20 grand for a kind of a crappy one, and you had to buy special lighting, and then you had to buy like dedicated ISDN lines to connect point to point with some other thing. It was insanity, and they were terrible.
Yeah,
like, they just didn't work. So it's remarkable to now like we finally gotten to the point where it's just everywhere and it like just works.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed, and it's crazy. Obviously, even in those days, like the demand was there. It was just like so complicated and hard. And I feel like we're in a world where it's like every year getting easier and there's more uses, but then it's also like, it's almost like more overwhelming. There's more options. There's more competition. Where should you put the videos that you make? I mean, you and I were just talking about this before we started recording, like, so it's like podcasts turning into video podcasts. Where should they be distributed? Where should it be? Should it always be on your site? So all these questions are, like they're good questions to have. It's like when video is as easy as writing text, which we're not there yet, but we're getting closer to that. It changes how you can use it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit more in a minute because there's a lot of interesting things to talk about there. But I want to ask you a little bit about a lot of your customer base has traditionally been marketers and people doing marketing video, but we're seeing on the sales side increasingly use of video, into emails to get people to open.
Totally.
Things like recording demos and sending that out. And I'm sort of curious, how you've seen video fitting into a sales process, either there or what you've observed from customers or just being sort of an expert in the industry.
There's been a ton that I've seen. There's like the personalized videos that are automagically put together for you, where you like merge in people's names and stuff like that. And those have been pretty clunky in the past. They're about to get much easier, much better. AI voice cloning is a big reason why. So I think we're going to see more of that. It's like anything, when you first start doing it, it works well. Then when everyone does it, it works, but like not as well. I think we're seeing a lot of people, and I think this comes back to just audience expectations, really like add video everywhere. And I'm a big believer that as the audience member, as an average person walking around, we get to pick how we want to engage with any content we want to learn more about, right? Like you can decide, like, do you want to watch the video version or do you want to listen to it or do you want to read it? Mm-hmm. And I think you're missing an opportunity if you're not giving all those options to your potential customer and to your prospect. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that we're seeing sales. Lots of reps are making custom videos for people, or they're sharing recent videos with somebody, or like a thing that we've seen happening with Wistia customers recently, which kind of happened pretty fast for us, honestly, because we launched live streaming, which is really like a webinar tool in October. We're seeing people take, hey, this is our most recent webinar. Here's the 2 or 3 minute thing my prospect's going to be most interested in. Clip it and add a custom recording to the front. And so the sales rep is like the recording things and editing them and doing it basically in real time. And the ultimate thing that the prospect's getting is completely custom. And I expect that to go further. Like, I think that over time, we're going to see even more. It's just like as everyone has more fluency with video day to day, it becomes easier to think like I should incorporate this into the way I'm talking to a prospect. And that will be differentiated now because you can educate people better, more easily than you could before.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the bar for personalization keeps going up, and it's similar to this idea that you were talking about earlier. It's like the first time somebody gets into something, it's relatively easy. Like you think about back in the old voicemail days, people started to record, automated voicemail drops, and that sort of worked for a while, and then everybody started doing that, and now, with the rise of video, you're starting to see more and more of that. And so I think some of the things that you're talking about where you've put some real thought into like, oh, I know that this person's going to be interested in this, and I'm going to prove that it was me that sent it with some thought and care. Definitely elevates it over what I don't know. Like, can you start to do your own deep fakes now, where I can just automate myself giving a personalized message to 100?
You can do it
or something.
You can do it now. So there's a company called Synesthesia. There's a few different ones that are cropping up, and you could do a custom AI avatar for yourself. It's a couple $1,000 to build the avatar. You have to give them like a few hours of footage of you like opening your mouth in funny ways and like all this like stuff so that they can like build the avatar. And then you can clone your voice and you can put it in there and you can just make a totally custom thing for each person. It's still like obvious if the person's large on the screen that it's an automated thing. I imagine it'll work for folks right now because it's so weird that like people will be like, whoa, what the hell is this weird thing?
Yeah, right.
And that will get a reaction. I think that the issue, I don't know when we're going to be at the point that we're through the uncanny valley. I think that's like a really big, I think we're going to get through it, but I don't know when. And there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of people working on these problems, and it creates a whole other slew of issues for us as a society that we're going to have to figure out how to deal with. But like this, it's coming for sure. Yeah.
And we've seen, another tactic that I've seen, I think, people were sort of getting away with doing it inexpensively early on. And then I think they caught on, and now there's a different pricing tier with people using cameos. It's sort of like, it wasn't good enough for me to get it, but let me get like Flavor Flav to say, to say something nice about you, so you open your email. And like, could I now do that with with deep fakes or?
That is going to happen soon. I'm sure some people are already doing it, but I think for it to really work at scale, it's going to be a few years. If you're doing enterprise sales and it takes a while, and you're just trying to get that first conversation going, I think you could probably make it work now.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so if somebody starts off with a video interaction, so let's take the example that you gave earlier, where a rep has distilled down part of a webinar to the most interesting part and sort of given a little bit of a preview, then sent it out to a prospect. A prospect starts to engage. Like how should a rep think about that? Should they be sort of watching analytics of what the video is, if that's available, or
in terms of finding the clips, or if the video is working?
Yeah, whether the video is working or not.
Yeah, they should definitely be looking at, like, I look at it as like, you should be looking at engagement of the video. So second by second, what are people watching? If you use a platform like Wistia, but there's a bunch of other ones, like you can tag who the viewer is so you can understand, hey, this is Joel watching this. And think of it as like, if someone's at home and they're watching a show on Netflix and they skip through it, they're not going to probably skip through a show, but let's switch to like a talk. I think it's a better example. Someone's giving a talk and you could see they skipped through and they found a part that they were interested in. Like you want to look in that to try to understand their interest level. Are they replaying things, or often are they forwarding it? I mean, that's another thing we see a lot of is like, you'll make a custom video for one person and suddenly gets 100 views. Like, what does that mean? It means obviously there's interest here. This company is seriously considering this. And I do think in a world where, people do more research before they talk to you, you want to take advantage of that and like give, as it's easier to make the video, it's easier to give more of the information away so that your prospect is like better informed before they're coming into the process. But yeah, you want to look at the second by second tracking, person by person, and get a sense of like the organizational interest and the specific interest. And I think, you can be like always, like a timely response and a helpful, thoughtful question is going to go a long way in terms of like keeping the conversation going.
Is there a sort of a shape that you're looking for that would be a good thing? So if I'm looking at the view history, do I just want a flat line, or is it
a flat line is a good sign. Like if people stayed with it the whole time, that's a good sign. I think you want to look if people are rewatching something. That's always like, we subconsciously rewatch things that are really interesting, really funny, confusing, very important. Like it's just a thing we do. So you're going through there and it's like, oh, like let's say it showed me the screen. I'll give you an example. This is a marketing example, but an example that happened for us recently. We had like this kind of longer, maybe 3-minute video explaining, I think it was about like building a webcam setup or something. And there was like a glimpse of this. There was like a 2-second moment where our head of video production at Wistia was basically explaining the settings he uses on his iPhone to shoot well. And we saw this huge spike of rewatching. And so we looked at that. We're like, well, there's obviously a lot of interest in how he has set up his phone. And it turns out there's a bunch of things, by the way, you can do with your phone. You don't realize they're going to give you a better image, and they're not the default. So they made a video that was just about his iPhone settings and why they are the way they are for shooting video. And that video got a lot of traction. And then ultimately, became a blog post and that got a lot of traffic. And then we update. And so like, it was that understanding and the rewatching was so critical to understand what people actually cared about. And then we took that and made the thing that was a longer form version of that. And so that's like, you're going to need the context to understand this. But if you're in there and you're looking, you're like, oh, everyone's always rewatching this part, and it's this one demo of our part of our product. If you have the longer form version of that or can make it, that's probably the best thing to send over, because they're trying to get a deeper understanding. Now, if you look at the context and you did something really stupid, or you swore, or you were embarrassing or something, then you're going to know that. But you need to match the analytics to the context. But I think rewatching is like a big moment. And also if there's a huge amount of drop off suddenly. So that's harder to see with one person. But if you send a video out, it has 50 views on it or 100 views, and you see everyone's turn off at some moment, you want to figure out why that is. It might be because you're wrapping up. That's a really normal reason. Or it might be because you said something really confusing, or you said something that took you out of the running. And so they're like, I'm not going to waste my time with this anymore. So understanding that is important.
Yeah, there's an interesting set of analytics there, probably even going back to, the marketing department or product management or other folks. Like we certainly see, with the rise of tools like, Gong and Wingman and Chorus, like those videos kind of getting sent around like, oh, listen to the prospect says this moment. But here it's sort of like you're getting a picture of probably what the customer is thinking without them ever having spoken to you, which in some cases you can't get them to talk to you.
Yes, that's exactly right. I think also just looking across your website to understand already the interest level of different things. Like if you have a bunch of video, because the interesting thing about a video is like you can tell if someone's spending time with it, and you can't really, at the very least they're listening to it in another tab. But usually if you're watching a corporate video, like you don't put it on in the background. Like if you're trying to learn something, you put it on. And then you turn it off. And I think when we remember that, like if you look across all the videos on your site and you see like, hey, this video is something that a lot of prospects are looking at, or show me all the prospects that are interested in this new thing, it actually makes it easier to figure out what to focus on, because you already know what they're interested in. But it's a lot of data to sift through. And that's why it's like, having the, our solution has been to plug into marketing automation platforms. So you have all the data in the right context. So as you're building cadences and figuring out what you need to do across your business, you can say like, hey, people who are interested in this, like, let's follow up with them, and people who aren't, let's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting use cases here, and we talked about, we sort of talked a little bit about the short form, but the long form I think is also quite interesting. Where,
Yes.
Let's say you do a demo, and instead of just doing it live, or maybe you do it live and you record it, but like if you can't get to a bunch of people all at the same time, if you've got like a big buying committee, it's hard to coordinate them. I think we still have in sales, particularly software sales, some reticence to recording demos and sending them out like, oh, what if the competition gets it or whatever. But It seems to me there's a real power in this data once you get it out in the world to see, just in the short form video, where did somebody drop off? You say, oh, well, here was the part of the product that they're really interested in.
Yeah. I think it's like a very underutilized thing. I think, your competition can always get access to you. You can come and pretend to be someone else and get a demo. Like, we know that everybody does that. Like it's not that hard. But I do think that like that power of giving someone the information in a way that it can actually be shared, and it's done in a narrative way. Like if you're telling the story and you're doing the demo and you're explaining why it's compelling as you go, that's different than just seeing the product, right? Like that's what you get by talking to somebody. And I think like, it builds trust. And so I do think it's something we should see more people do. I've been noticing more people. It's interesting. We've seen a trend in our data. We actually just released, they call it the State of Video Report. That was like 2 weeks ago. Last week, we released it here at Wistia, all the numbers from 2022 and previously. And one of the things that's really interesting that's shifted and has stayed shifted since before COVID is that actually people have much more tolerance for watching longer stuff. And I think that makes sense in a world which is like much more flexible, and we're more outcome oriented, and there's a lot more remote working. As you want to go deep on something, you're willing to spend that 30 minutes right now, and you don't have to wait for the demo and the live demo. Or when you get into the live demo, you have more specific questions because you already know what you're dealing with. And I've been noticing this trend of people using, especially PLG, like you get someone into your product and you have a longer form demo in there, like the 15-minute version.
Yeah.
But then you can tell if someone's watching that whole thing, they're really interested. So if you have other points of contact with that person, that's someone who's trying to go deep.
Yeah.
You can follow up and be like, hey, do you have any questions I can help with? They just watch the thing. If they don't, great. Like let them self-serve. But if they do, that's the person you're going to want to talk to. And that full service sales motion is going to be what closes them. And so it's just been interesting to see that shift happen, is like give people more information, but also understand if they're interacting with it. If they are, follow up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that. Yeah, we're seeing more, and I think we're also seeing tools is a bit of a diversion, but like tools like Walnut and some of these other things in the process to try to let customers do more self-serve demoing where like the demo actually works. But I think video could be another very powerful tool in that. But again, it's sort of like you got to sort of be willing to get the information out there, which I think is a good trade relative to the information that you're getting back. What about in terms of so let's say I'm a rep and I'm sort of getting religion around video. I'm starting to record more demos. I'm starting to do more, maybe presentations and getting them sent out to the customers or the prospects that I'm trying to work with. You guys have a tool called Soapbox, and Soapbox allows you to sort of capture your video as well as, do a screen capture. And talk to me a little bit about like, is there any research or do you guys have anecdotal feedback that suggests that like when you actually have the person there sort of narrating through it, that it's better than just a screen grab, recording?
Oh, it's definitely better. It's without a doubt. Like you see this in all the data. You see this in like thumbnails on YouTube, like having a person on the thumbnail like really matters. Like if you want people to click play.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, we see like that having people in the video and having people in thumbnails is more engaging. That is for sure true. I think I could go on about that, but yes, that is a huge trend. And the thing I would say is like also there's this other thing happening at the same time in the creator economy where we are more and more connecting with individuals instead of just brands. And that's already coming in B2B. Like it's already happening. And you notice it with like, we've done a huge amount of testing on this, for example, at Wistia, and we've seen on LinkedIn that like our brand, which has a lot of followers, like just cannot get the same level of engagement as individual people basically posting the same thing. But we get a lot of, we can get a lot of engagement that if it's non-organic on LinkedIn. So if we pay on the brand, we can get a lot of people coming in, and it's actually great ROI. But that's basically the shift that happened on Facebook. That's the shift that happened on Instagram. It's happened everywhere else, and it's happening B2B too. And so I think like we used to be able to build huge organic bases with just the brand, and it's switching to it has to be the person. And I think that also it's all connected. So like if you're buying from a software company, yeah, you'll care about the brand of the software company, and your day-to-day experience of using the product and stuff is going to add up and have an impact. But if you have a person that you feel a connection to, that's a specific person at that business, all the numbers are going to be better. It's going to increase the likelihood of a lot of things working.
Yeah, I remember Dave Gerhardt over at Drift doing this very effectively a number of years ago on LinkedIn.
Totally. He's still doing it with his new marketing community. Is like he's out there sharing stuff behind the scenes of his like life that seems like a little crazy to share, and he's being crazy authentic, and he's building a real business doing it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I know the folks at OpenView have written a little bit about this as well. They've got some interesting thoughts on this. Chris, what do you think as we kind of wrap up here? Where do you think this is heading next? Like if you were, let's say you were a sales leader, and you were talking to a sales leader and you were advising that sales leader about like where to think about investing in video and what's coming and how to think about it. What are some things that come to mind?
I think the first thing is you want your team to have fluency with video at work. I think like they should already probably have fluency of video like in their day-to-day life, but I think you want people to have fluency with it at work because there's going to be places that it doesn't make sense for because the cost of creation will still be too high. And there's going to be places that it's going to be crazy not to do it. And you need them to be looking across like all their interactions and figuring out the best place with your business model and the way you sell to actually incorporate it in. And it's a very big difference if they're empowered to make that stuff and use it themselves. Like if they have to wait for the video producer to do it on the team, it can happen, but it takes much more thought and planning. And if they're empowered to do it themselves and to take those risks, like I think that's a big deal. It is a risk. Like there's a brand risk, right? And I think that's the other thing that's worth saying is this is what stops people from using video is a fear that the video is going to make them look worse, that they're going to like hurt their brand by being on camera. And so I think like if you're not doing anything, you have to find the places where you can test and do this because without a doubt, it's coming for everyone. Everyone's going to need to do it. The expectations have already shifted in our personal lives. They're shifting at work. I mean, the more asynchronous you are, the more video matters, all these things. And then I would say once you're doing it, measure those small wins and look for that qualitative feedback. Like ask your prospect and ask your customers, like, did this have an impact? What would have been more helpful? And like close that loop quickly so that you're iterating fast enough you can see it in the numbers. But I think the fluency is the most important piece because every process is different. There's not one rule I can give you that's like always going to work perfectly, especially because like, as we were talking about before, you do something for the first time and it's completely different than everyone else. That's going to work really well. If everyone starts doing it 3 months later, it's not going to work. That's just how it is. So you just want to be able to have your team find the right opportunities and go after them. And I will tell you, the tech exists today that anyone can make this stuff.
Yep. And, as we wrap up here, Wistia is a great place to find that tech. So if people want to learn more about Wistia or follow you, what are the best ways to be in touch?
Yeah, Wistia.com, Wistia.com. I'm on Twitter at csavage, and I'm on LinkedIn. Just search for Chris Savage. You'll find me and posting a lot there. And I host my podcast, Talking Too Loud with Chris Savage, which is wherever you listen to podcasts, which goes into more of this stuff, marketing, creative journey, all that kind of jazz. So thank you for having me, Joel. This has been great.
Yeah, great. Great to see you again, and hopefully see you soon.
Sounds good.
All right.